Hi, this is Nick Lalonde, your host of What's Next, making your third act your best act. Today you're going to hear from the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. While this isn't the Tom Brady you might be thinking of, he's just as interesting and often has his reservations mistaken for the football superstar. Tom has had tremendous professional success and recently entered his third act of life, finding fresh purpose with Flow Pharma. In his early 60s, he is more energized by his work than ever before, working with some of the brightest minds in the world, looking to solve some of the world's biggest health issues. What stuck out to me in my conversation with Tom is that he has always prioritized both work and play. He's done 15 cruises around the world with the family, rented the villas in Italy rather than waiting for retirement to enjoy these things. He said you can only drink so many fruity drinks on the beach before it gets old. Be sure to listen in when Tom talks about how the wealthiest people in the world choose to spend their time. I hope you'll enjoy my conversation with Tom as much as I did. Thank you everyone for tuning in to What's Next, making your third act your best act. I'm super excited today. We have the GOAT on the podcast. We have Tom Brady joining us. Tom, thank you so much for coming on today.
Nick, it's a pleasure to be with you and your audience. Thanks for the invitation.
And Tom, from what I understand, so your name is Tom Brady. It's ironic that we're talking about high achievers and retiring, because I know the Tom Brady who played football struggled actually retiring and staying retired. But I'm curious, you had mentioned you have kind of this Tom Brady connection, and you had kind of a funny story. So I want to hear more about that.
The first time I met Tom Brady, the quarterback, was when he was a graduate of the University of Michigan, well before he was drafted by the New England Patriots. He was sitting at my uncle's house in Foster City because he played basketball and baseball in high school with my nephew Kevin. They're lifelong friends. In fact, Tom and Giselle came to Kevin's wedding. So he's actually part of the family indirectly. The best part of being sharing a name with a sports figure like him, 5 Super Bowl rings, Tom, is that when I made reservations in Las Vegas for dinner with my brother, John, and my friend Jim from Florida, John tricked me and said, Tom, why don't you just call up and make a reservation at Michael's old, beautiful steakhouse in Las Vegas. It's old school. You'll love it. Just call up, put it under your name. So I missed the putt. I had time at the end of our golf game, and I went over and pulled out my cell phone, called up the restaurant, and they said, Mr. Brady, you're back in town so soon. We'll have your table ready for you. Look forward to your visit. I didn't know what that meant, but we got there and there was 2 bottles of champagne on the table, compliments of Michael's, and they were thrilled to have Tom Brady back in the house. This happens to me 5 or 6 times a year. I really stopped drinking. I'm a swimmer. I'm taking great care of myself, but thanks. It's great to be associated with Tom, the sports figure. He's a great person, and I'm happy to share and bask in his limelight.
That is such an incredible story. Now, I'm curious. One of the things that you had told me previously is that at 59, you're 62 today. Is that right?
I'm 62 now. Yeah.
So at 59, you made the choice to go back to school and go to Stanford's business school. Is that right?
Yes. The Stanford GSB had a special program called LEAD for executives with more than 20 years of experience. And I didn't think I would get into the program, but I wrote an essay and I did a video interview, and they sent me a letter and said, you're accepted to our class of 516 highly experienced executives and from 65 countries, and welcome. And I thrived in that environment and actually got the intellectual contribution award in the fall semester from my classmates. So I saw that as an opportunity to remain curious, courageous, and compassionate. Lessons that I took away from that program that have really helped shape my future as a leader.
What were you doing at the time though? Why go back to school?
I I'm surrounded by brilliant scientists and physicians, and they're always improving. They're constantly doing research. They're constantly publishing scientific papers. And I thought I wanted to raise the level of my game and even make a few friends in Silicon Valley, which I did, that were very helpful to helping us get where we are today. And just the constant thirst for knowledge and keeping up is important, whether you're 30, 40, or 62. And people say, what are you reading these days? And for me, it was more about learning how to solve problems and apply a very strong team mentality and get the best out of everybody on the team. And we've been able to head in that direction. So I think that education has opened up many more doors that I really didn't expect. So
I'm seeing this so often among high achievers that's got to be a common thread where they're always looking to learn and educate themselves and grow in their knowledge. I'm curious though. So we believe here that there's three acts of life. The first act is all about learning. So typically, you'll go to college, university, you'll graduate, maybe mentor in your first role. The second act of life is about growing, building, accumulating. So I often find, this is folks building a business or climbing the corporate ladder, and then at some point it's no longer about those things. You'll see a pivot and people will move into their third act of life. And the reason why I say third act and not retirement is because I often find serial entrepreneurs don't want to retire. I find high achievers don't necessarily want to sit on their couch or play pickleball all day. And so I'm curious, when you think about your own life and just some of the things you've done, if you could walk us through maybe your background and all the things you've done for work and then where you're at today. But I'd like to know, what act do you think you're in at the moment?
definitely in the third act of seeking a lasting legacy for myself and my family, having a very high impact on the world of cancer therapies, and bringing something new to the table that's much more safe and effective. I think that will be revolutionary and great for our investors. I'll start out by saying I came from a technical background, got out of UC Berkeley and jumped right into the mainframe mini system support role, taking care of life support systems at UCLA and hospital systems down in Southern California. Kaiser Permanente was our first client in Pasadena at their credit union, a $200 million facility. And they hired us over the manufacturer data general because we guaranteed uptime and better service levels. And we took that philosophy and just said, services is paramount. That's what will define us in the marketplace. And we grew that business from 1 customer to 88 customers in less than 36 months. And while the technology was changing, the relationships and building a strong reputation for reliability never changes. So I had a great reputation leaving that technology platform and then starting my own business in the web publishing, first of all, with commercial real estate properties, REITs, and we got on the REIT circuit, went to ICSC in Las Vegas, and just word of mouth recommendations saying, hire Tom and his team, they're phenomenal. You'll get exactly what you need. So we did about $12 billion worth of commercial property, over 800 shopping centers around America from competing firms like Kimco, Pan Pacific Realty, New Plan Excel. All of these great real estate investment trusts around the country came to us and relied on us for their own needs as they were expanding and filling up empty leases, which led me to CNL REIT in Orlando. Jay Bastian was one of my mentors, I would say. He taught me so much about property acquisition and how CNL became a leader in that field. And Jay actually said, Tom, you're so good at this. Why don't you go get a broker's license? And that was about 2014. And because I said, well, how much property have we helped move for you in the marketplace? He said, well, you actually helped us move $1 billion of property with your platform. So I knew that our commercial real estate web tools were very useful and powerful. But we had been trained by the cruise industry, 28 competing brands. The CLIA group at cruising.org had basically parked their business with us for 13 years in a row. And Bob Schrack, one of the great leaders of my life, would meet in Florida and New York, and we would brainstorm about what do 16,000 travel agents need to help move business for 20 million Americans. And we had that business for 13 years. So we really had a defining role in how cruise information and destination guides were provided to the travel industry. So I just kept building on this platform of reliability and being there for the customers 7 by 24, to the point where we got so good at this in hotels and resorts, we ended up managing the Las Vegas Hilton, and then became an advisor to the $4 billion transaction for Fairmont Hotels and Resorts, by looking at their processes and helping them with what they knew very well, what they were curious about, and what may be a brand new technology. But we would always support them and have this role where we would make them look good and everyone would benefit. So that was a valuable lesson. And then around 2015, Jack Lloyd, founder of Nelcor, asked me to come look at his business with Dr. Reed Rupsman, who is a great friend and a genius in his field in anesthesia. And I said I would be more than honored to help look at the business and help grow it. So I had a role in finding the right investors, bringing them to the table, and generating the kind of investment that we needed to do our research work and expand and move eventually to Cleveland, Ohio, and expand eventually to go to Saudi Arabia, where there were government programs available and all kinds of interest in breast cancer, because it was 350% higher than it was 20 years ago. So we're addressing problems that relate to global health issues, not just breast cancer, but other kinds of difficult to treat cancers that respond well to our immunotherapies that have been published from results in the animal studies that we've done at National Galveston Lab in Texas. And so on. We are at a point now where we're ready to do human trials, and we're raising the capital to do that with support from some of the best known medical centers in America and the Middle East. So it's very humbling, and it's a great opportunity. I think we will prevail. I think, given the fact that we have 10 issued patents and 10 published scientific articles, including Nature, puts us in a very good competitive space. And we have a lot of work to do, but we need to demonstrate the effectiveness and safety in humans, and that's where we are today.
So I'm curious, Tom, going back to the question on the 3 acts of life. So the first act we have is learning. The second act we have is growing, accumulating, building. The third act I would define as finding fresh purpose and identity. And I find oftentimes serial entrepreneurs will still be running and managing businesses in this case, right? High achievers are still doing high impact, high value work. Why did you say, Nick, I'm definitely in my third act, though? At what point in your life did you transition from the second act to now the third act of life?
Well, I've already taken care of the needs for the family, and having, I would say, being a good father and husband, making family number one, and providing in my early years so that they've achieved their own independence. The children have achieved their own independence. My wife and I have achieved somewhat of our own independence. There's still work to do. They're still working on some retirement income, but the opportunity before me is so rare and so important that I am definitely in the high impact social legacy part of my life, where the change that we can make today, even at 62, is pretty phenomenal. Imagine if we could have a cancer therapy for 200,000 breast cancer patients a year. That would be life-changing for them, great for the patients. So you have to seize the day. This is a carpe diem story. Seize the day and there's there will be time when you can go to the south of France or pursue your leisure. But right now, we have so little time, and we have so much in the area of technology and artificial intelligence driving medicine and drug discovery that we want to remain at the forefront of our technologies and leverage our patent applications and leverage all the key relationships that we have now. So there's really no time to rest. Really, if you have the heart and mindset of a 30-year-old, which swimming has really done for me, I would say seize that, take good care of yourself. You're going to have another good 40 years. That's a fact. So think in terms of living in a blue zone mentality, being healthy, being sharp, challenging yourself to achieve your goals because you can. And these are God-given skills. We didn't create them, okay? We were given these gifts, and it is our job, it is our responsibility to use what we have. So that's how I look at life, and a lot of people share that same philosophy.
So I'm curious, when I think about the average 62-year-old in America, most people
Mm.
are thinking about sailing off into the sunset. They're slowing down. I'm talking to you, and it feels like you're speeding up, and you're speeding
I
up
am.
rapidly.
Well, I've done 15 cruises around the world. I've already done that with the family, and those were great memories. So I didn't postpone that uh, relaxation, recreation, the quality time with the family. We did that as we were going through life in our 40s and 50s. We rented the villas in Italy. We cooked the pancetta and did the hiking in Gubbio and Assisi, and we did those things all through my working life. That was work-life balance, and my wife did a great job as a pharmacist for Eli Lilly. So we were able to do the ideal retirement goals almost every year since our 40s. And that was 20 years ago. So I've had a very full life. And I would say anyone who who's advancing their career and is successful, they're always looking at ways to balance play with goals. So, the executive who wants to go to Aspen for conferences will find a way to do the skiing with the family and attend the workshops. In the same manner, I will find a way to get to Italy or France, get the work done, be with the family, but also do an amazing amount of planning, strategy, and execution while I'm there in market. So today, uh, with all the tools we have for connectivity and our willingness to work with our partners at any time that can be scheduled at a convenient time, it's very common for us to be in 3 time zones around the world with our leader in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in our office there, here in California, and then medical personnel in Cleveland. It's very easy and commonplace to be able to organize those calls. So, and we couldn't do that 10 years ago. We didn't have the Zoom functionality 10 years ago, but we do today. So we can have the best of both worlds. And that's why it's possible for us to chase our dreams, live a very fulfilling life now, and do it all. Really, we have the tools and the bandwidth to do it all. You got to be healthy. You got to take care of yourself. You got to have balance. You got to have a great life partner. But those are the reasons why we don't sit still and wait for to flip the calendar to say, oh, what am I going to do with my retirement? We have a very full life.
You mentioned something just now that really had a light bulb moment there. And it sounds like because you've had work-life balance, because you've balanced play and work all your life, there's not this urge necessarily to just stop and retire so that you can enjoy all these things. And it
Right.
sounds like for maybe the average American, even there's some delayed gratification going on where they're waiting to take that cruise with the family or cook the pancetta or go on the hike like you talked about, instead of doing it now. Do you think that's contributed then? You're 62. Has that contributed then for you having a lot of tread left on your tires?
I have a lot of tread because I have a lot of responsibility to investors. And it's not in my game plan to rest until we finish the job. So I'm highly motivated, not just for myself and my family's benefit, but for the benefit of everyone who has placed bets on us and believes in us. And while there are very challenging times in our biotech space, we do have the skill set to navigate and seize opportunities. And there are many opportunities for us in cancer therapies and infectious disease applications. So I'm not ever waking up with the idea, how do I rest on my laurels? It's how do I allocate time, quality segments, and look at the calendar, plan with my wife. How do we allocate the family, the business, the deadlines, the conferences, the book, the writing that I like to do? How do we do all of that? And you have to sit down and plan that out. So it's a very active time. It's not a passive time. I think because of the increase in health awareness and our ability to exercise, stay fit, walk, measure that with our Apple Watch, and just be aware, and scale back on the wine, scale back on the alcohol consumption, scale back on the fatty foods, and really take care of yourself. You're going to be in really good stead for the next 30 years. I'm a non-smoker, really a non-drinker now, and being a swimmer has changed my life. That has probably been one of the single most best decisions of 2021, is to go swimming every day for an hour, knock out a mile, and you'll be thinking like you're 30 years old all over again. That's what happened.
Can we go back to you said, Nick, I have a lot of tread left on my tire because I have an obligation to my investors and I'm not going to
Yes.
rest until the job is done. And
Yes.
one of the things I often see high achievers struggle from is the goalpost continues to move. So they set a goal, they hit the goal, and then the goalpost moves again. So how will you know when the job is done?
Well, there's always economic markers. There's business markers to define success or failure. I think it's important that we go down the pathway, the regulatory pathway with the FDA, get NDAs for the drugs that we're working on, get the US seal stamp of approval, so we create tremendous value for our investors with these cancer therapies. These are all peptide-based novel therapies that are much more safer than the standard of care for today. So one way of measuring that is showing the scientific and medical community that our therapies are safe and don't cause side effects like some of the drugs that are available today. That's number one, the scientific proof that your medicine is actually better than the current standard of care. And once that is demonstrated, the marketplace will respond and place a tremendous value on that innovation. So the value creation that we're looking at could be 20, 30, 50, 100x. And that's what motivates us.
Mm-hmm. When is the job done for you though? Right. So obviously we talked about the business's goals, but what I'm curious
Right.
about is what does life look beyond, what does life look like maybe beyond Flow Pharma? Or is Flow Pharma going to be it for you for the next
No,
20
no.
years?
I I think we can create a tremendous amount of value, complete the regulatory pathway, and let's say I end up creating value of $10 million for the family. Let's say that's just possible. I would not sit still. I might like to organize a moment in time and share that moment with my friends that are close to us. Maybe rent a house for a month, but then I would come back to California and see what's next in terms of how can I apply my network? How can I apply my skills and take care of the family? It's hard to predict what great other opportunity will come down the road to me, but I want to keep an open mind. I don't want to retreat from the world. You look at people like Carl Icahn. What did Carl do after he really hit it big? Well, he donated the Carl Icahn School of Genomics to Princeton University, where he went to school. He and his wife donated to the Mount Sinai Medical School in New York. It's the Carl Icahn School of Medicine. You can only sit on the beach and have fruity drinks and sunsets for so long. That's not a life plan. That is necessary. Those moments are great for taking stock and having a moment, but it's not the be all and end all of what I view as retirement. So I look at the very successful people in America, and I've read their biographies, and what they tend to do is give back very generously. Look at Gates. Bill and Melinda still run their foundation. They have separate lives now, but they're committed to positive social change and impact around the world. You look at Michael and Lowell Milken. They've already given 2,000 grants for cancer research. And you look at other families who have, I think the minimum to get into the Forbes 400 is $2.8 billion this year. So you look at those families and you see what they're doing. They are thinking about climate change. They're thinking about quality of life, water, access to water, and access to healthy foods and the food supply around the world, making sure there's enough, making sure that there's education for those that don't have it, making sure that there are opportunities for those that don't have it. Some have taken on a flavor of social justice, especially in the Pacific Northwest. There's a theme among those billionaires that are thinking about how do we make opportunity for everyone who may not have had a fair chance in prior generations. So it just depends on your appetite, how you want to impact the world. Once you've taken care of your responsibility to your family, there will be excess. There's largesse among many of these Forbes 400 families to give back in very meaningful ways. Some do it in the form of education and fund chairs at universities. Some donate whole universities. Some donate whole hospitals. So I want to be in that category. I'd love to be able to donate a hospital someday. Yeah.
Wow. What an incredible answer. It sounds like you've done a lot of research just on looking at some of these high achievers and how they're living out their third act.
Well,
Who do you go?
it helped to wear their shoes. I mean, I actually pictured one day wearing the shoes of Lorraine Jobs, Steve Jobs's lovely, lovely wife. And she could do anything she wants with her wealth. And she has chosen to create Emerson Collective in Palo Alto. And they have great goals in mind, and they have a great team of forward thinkers, and they're doing good work. And I think that given that opportunity, I would want to do the same thing. So the game's not over.
Why do you think that's the
Enjoy
case
life
for?
and balance it with your family. Take care of your family and reach for the stars.
Yeah. Why do you think that's the case with high achievers, that they can't just sit on the beach and drink fruity drinks all day? And why do you think that message is preached for retirement, across the country? Why do you think that's the natural retirement rhetoric that we think of?
You started out by making a very good point about the government had a notion in the 30s to create Social Security. Now that thought was noble in the heart of depths of the Depression. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was telling us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and become self-sufficient. I don't know if that message resonates today with our youth and the current economic scheme, because many of us have been on the receiving end of wealth from our parents and in the form of inheritance or others. But I was raised at a time in the 60s when my dad said, Tom, you're 12 now. You want to go to the movies? Well, I'm sure you'll figure out a way to pay for that. And that's extremely valuable lesson to become self-sufficient, not just in retirement, leaning on the government for whatever savings they put aside for you. But if you have this mindset to be providing for yourself, providing for your family, those are very, very powerful lessons that create wealth over time. And that compounds with interest, and it gets into real estate opportunities, which go up in value, that don't fall prey to the erosion of inflation. So those of us who have been fortunate to get a decent education know these things, that you can't sit around waiting for someone else to provide for you, even in your retirement, even when it comes to what is the government going to give back to me after all my hard years of work paying into the system for Social Security. So I really don't count on any direct government support as a lifestyle. We want to be able to create our own retirement. We want to be able to create our own dreams, our own independence. And this is what separates us from, other systems in the world, this free market enterprise and risk reward system that we've been exposed to over the years, where hard work does pay off, and you put a little aside in savings and you grow that. So the notion of just doing nothing, in some cases, leads to the unwinding of the spirit in that high achiever. I don't know many people that do nothing. I only know people that are really active. They're either in retirement, they're doing something for other people. My grandfather read the newspaper to the blind. That's how he enjoyed his retirement. Get on the bus, go to San Francisco, read the newspaper to the blind. A great guy who made a decent living selling advertising his whole life. And he had a few failures, but he came out from Omaha in 1947, lived a few blocks away from Warren Buffett, came to California with 5 children, set his dreams on the Golden State, and thrived. And I look up to him as a great role model. Even in his humbleness, he provided for us and created a generation of very high achievers. We were at a place where we could go to the right schools and get a great education and make those choices, having the freedom to choose, not being told, oh, this is where you belong over here. No, we had the freedom always to choose where we wanted to take our lives. And so in the case of my own children, I asked them, I would like you to come help with the Rotary and pass out lunch to the new teachers this year in September. One daughter jumped in the car and said, let's go. The other daughter said, I'm not so sure I want to do volunteer service. There was a bifurcation in philosophy right there that I witnessed on that day. And I said, well, Jennifer, you and I are going to go meet a whole bunch of new people, serve them lunch, and say thank you. And my other daughter, well, I won't embarrass her by calling her out by name, but she was more wrapped up in her social media communication and what's in it for me. And she's come a long way. She's a much more mature girl these days. But the mindset was different. And I'm trying to I have instilled, my wife and I have instilled in the children to always be thinking about what they can do to help other people. It might be a soup kitchen, it might be food bank work, it might be donating some time, or being teaching someone to read, or teaching someone to acquire some more skills. That's valuable and that's meaningful.
Tom, I'm so impressed by you though, because the baby boomer generation is known as the 60-hour work week generation. I mean, probably one of the
Oh,
hardest working generations we'll ever see.
hmm.
But the fact is, you've been able to balance work with family at the same time, right? So the fact that you prioritized your family and travel and the fun, but also got your work done and were able to, have a lot of success is truly amazing. I
I
have
have to
one
give the
last.
credit to
Oh,
my mom and dad. Dad was a high school teacher. He had the 3 months off in the summer, so we had fabulous work family balance and explored Alaska and Canada 30 days on the road. I mean, wouldn't want it anyway. So Tom and Kathy Brady are really my guideposts and shining lights.
I have one last question before you wrap up here, and it's
Okay.
knowing what you know now. Is there anything that you would have done differently in your career?
I don't think so. I've always been a risk taker. I've always embraced change. I've always been curious, and I've always tried to lead my life um, so that I'm proud of what I'm doing. I have no regrets. I don't think I would change a thing, but thanks for asking.
Well, Tom, this has been an amazing conversation. I so appreciate you coming on the show and just sharing your wisdom and your insight. I'm excited to see how your third act continues to play out, and you're a tremendous asset to Flow Pharma. So, looking forward to
Thanks.
watching your journey along the way. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Nick, pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.